We were only ever one hipster handklap away from becoming something kind of grotesque and very, very now. Being current and trying to be relevant are difficult feats to kind of balance. In a frank way, we could afford ourselves more time, so it felt like that's what we should do, and see what happens with that. And
also, we've been on the road for a long time. We've almost 4 years with the only breaks really being the making of the albums. So I think we wanted to go away and re-engage with what it was we were doing, and rather than just kind of saying, okay, we need to make another album now, let's go. It's like, well, what do we actually want to make, and what have we got to say, and what are we interested in?
Albums is a career, and you have to be very careful to not fall into those traps of doing what is expected of you, as it were. And frankly, we could probably do an album of the same level as the last one and probably play to decent enough rooms and make a living, but there's no adventure in that.
It's important to try and remember to push yourself and try and be something you're not, to try and to go a bit further than you did before, because otherwise, I don't think you're going to make interesting stuff, and you're destined to, repeat yourself.
I think we have kind of accepted that computers are to our generation what electric guitars probably were to the 60s generations. They kind of bring with them a huge amount of possibilities, and with possibilities become dangers. And I think we kind of feel it feels fun to risk disaster.
You need to have a core to what you do, and you can incorporate other things, and you're supposed to change over time, but you're not supposed to change with fashion. You're supposed to kind of, incorporate things you find interesting. Not ignore the modern world, but not be slave to it either. Last record was very kind of delicate and quite foggy and quite, I guess, quite gentle. And I think this record is much less so, much less gentle. It's much brasher and much more straightforward in a lot of ways.
The clarity to it that I think came from the stillness of taking time. We got to wait for those days of epiphany, those kind of days you work towards where there's a brief fragment of discovery, and all of a sudden 2 weeks' work kind of falls into place in 20 minutes. We talked about notions of being in the now and being content with the now, because memory has a habit of editing out the bad bits. And it's easy to be nostalgic and to look back and things to seem pretty good. And we also live with the shadow of the future hanging over. We live very much aware of how our future is going to play out. So I think songs, in a way, become ways for people to live in the now. They elongate time.